he was rolling because it was 50 mile an hour. Well, he swerved, and when he swerved, he kind of slid a little bit and caught the front of my front bumper. Oh,
I thought we struck some of that.
We did scratch that. I don't remember specifically we scratched it.
I believe.
Do you have it in your
Not as
final
focused as I
version?
needed to be trying to get to my next appointment.
Maybe I'm looking at an old version.
I was
Well,
like, that's before he stopped. I saw him like off in the distance. And then, wow, I was like, stop. But he's still right across my front bumper. I'm calling to drive.
Yeah, it looks like they took it out. They took it out, Bobby, because I don't see it here. This is, I think, the new goes from the annexations to.
yeah. Right. Right. That's what. Yeah, it's gone.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today to the Graham City Council special meeting. Today, we are going to be discussing the approval of proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 rate and fee schedule. And so since the last council meeting, we've had some discussion in regard to how to proceed with implementing increased water and sewer development fees, and also some of the other fees. At the last meeting, from the original proposition that was proposed from staff, there were a lot of fees that were cut, such as appeals to the board, things like that. Just a lot of flat rate fees were cut that were new fees. Before staff gave them to us, I think our assistant city manager, Aaron Holland, had also cut several of the fees before it was presented to council. And then some additional discussion has been had since our last meeting, which a lot of it was clarification with our city engineer. And so the proposals that are on for tonight's discussion is the fees as suggested through the analysis that's being required to be done from Allie Williams, Carmen and King, our city engineer. Basically, a simplified version of that is when Duke Energy raises rates for their utilities, they have to do an analysis to show what the true cost of using that system is, and then submit that information to the Utilities Commission, basically to get a fair and reasonable cost for what you're charging users for those services. So that's what the analysis that was done. Is the analysis online for anybody to be able to access? Okay, it is. So we passed that at the last city council meeting. That wasn't saying that we are turning around and charging users that amount. And in fact, I think what was originally being proposed was either a percentage of that actual cost was being discussed and considered, but there's very stringent rules that our engineer has to go through in order to be able to do that analysis. And that has to be approved, and he has to use methodology that's approved through DEQ, is that right? AWWA. So anyways, when the actual numbers came out was just maybe a week or something before the council meeting. And I think we were even having a lot of discussions when the numbers came out about this is going to be a significant cost being proposed, and how that would affect affordable housing here. All sorts of different discussions were being had. There was a lot of concern. So I wanted to make sure that that people were notified about that. So even though it came up at the last budget meeting, I asked the council to please consider postponing this, giving us an opportunity to notify our local builders. And I sent out that email to Susan Black from the Home Builders Association in Burlington, and asked her to please get the word out to her members and to builders in the community so that we could get some feedback on that. In the meantime, myself, Mr. Chin has done some work. Other council members may also have done some work as well. Aaron has done some work. Our city engineer has done some work, done some clarification to us. And I think we've come up with something different. And do you have any handouts for anybody in the audience? Okay. So
Best way to do that. Sorry, Renee.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you give them all way too much credit.
You're all going to get a free eye exam today.
Yes.
But I know when I sent this initially to from the last version that was being proposed, the initial amount was a difference of, correct my math, I know it was like 480 some for water was the original development fee. That was being raised to 4,000.
The total for a 2-bedroom, 3/4-inch water meter went from 1185 for sewer and 483 for water to 1748 for sewer and 2,771 for water. So when you would add those together, and this is the maximum allowable. The current fee is 480. You would think I'd have this written down.
483 for water.
Yes, 483. The current fee is 1668 for a single connection, and the maximum allowable fee would be 4519.
Right, 4519. Is that what the new proposal is?
No, that's the maximum allowable.
Oh, okay. So that was from the last meeting, and we thought that was, several of the members of the council thought that was too much to handle. And then the new proposal that is being proposed since last meeting is what, Josh here?
Yes, so the new proposal that is for a phased implementation. So the fee as of July 1, 2022, so in the new fiscal year would be $1,100 for water, $1,100 for sewer for the 2-bedroom, 3/4-inch meter, which would give you $2,200 and then that would be your initial, equivalent residential unit, and then you would multiply from there for each of the higher uses. Then it would go up again and it's going to be to the left then, Aaron. And then it would go up again January 1, 2023 to 1,500. So it would go from 1,100 for water, 1,100 for sewer, to 1,500 for water and 1,500 for sewer. And then potentially you would go up again July 1, 2023. That would obviously be the next fiscal year. So that would be in the next fee schedule in the next budget cycle.
So part of the reason why I really wanted to wait and get some input is obviously contractors are under contract and have already kind of figured these fees into existing contracts that they have. And I think going up, more than doubling the rates on what was first being proposed is unfair, especially for people that have multiple homes that are under contract for big developments. And So I was somewhat pleading for an implementation process just to be able to make sure that it's posted at our planning department so that when builders or developers come in to submit plans, they would have knowledge of this phased in increase and that they could include that in their planning when they're producing estimates for building. The situation is for us as a city council is that we are being required to do an upgrade to our wastewater treatment plant. That wastewater treatment plant is not a new building. It is just doing improvements to the interior of the building based on state and federal mandates for environmental cleaning of our sewage, and we have to meet new standards. This has been something that's been in the hopper for 20 years, I know. Was talked about when I was on the council 20 years ago, right?
Not CIP for a while.
So the previous council had saved about $11 million. And just to let you know, the wastewater, the water sewer fund, it has to be a self-supporting fund, which means you can't use taxpayer dollars. You can't take money from property taxes and pay for these improvements. And so we have an $11 million budget is our water and sewer fund. And over the last 20 years, they've saved $11 million to do this project, which may be $11 million, you know, seems like a lot of money, but it was not enough. The bid that we had last year, based on our best estimates from our other engineer that we had hired, was somewhere around 32 million. And how we had that estimate was there were obviously a lot of municipalities in North Carolina that were being required to do the same thing we're required to do. Mebane is another one that will have to do it. Elon, right? Didn't you say? Wasn't there another one that had to do it recently? What, Burlington?
Well, I know Mebane is.
Mebane.
behind this, but
So Burlington did theirs several years ago. And then Mebbins was looking to see what our contract came back at as well. And last year we were getting bids of 32 million, and we just opened the contract last month and it's $74 million. We don't have it, that's the lowest bid. And that is the best that we can get. We advertised it regionally and did everything we could, but that's kind of the numbers that they're seeing all across the state of North Carolina right now. So having $11 million budgeted for a $74 million project is disappointing, obviously. But we have to do what we have to do. This is a fund where we can only take revenues from a few places that's allowed, which is our fund balance, which is $11 million, loans, which we've applied for over, what is the last loan amount that they applied for? 72 million?
well, we're currently waiting on the 30 million. I think we're waiting on the 30 million to close that gap. We had 45, I believe, already in.
So we had 45, we've applied for another 30 million. We've applied since, I know since November, we've applied for close to 15 million in grants. And we're waiting to see about that. Some of these grant organizations have caps on how much they're willing to give you. We've also reached out to all of our legislators to try to get money. We have $1 million in the state budget, but whether the governor is going to approve that budget, historically, he has not approved a single budget except for last year. So I'm not holding my breath as to whether we'll get that. But if the budget in North Carolina does get passed, then we'll be able to get that $1 million. But it either has to come from user fees, these development fees, or grants, or fund balance. So that really restricts where we can get the money from to pay for the 74 million. And so you've run the numbers, Josh, and what if we're able to do this in this implemented phase, for the rest of the council's knowledge, are we going to be able to get there to it? I mean, be able to adequately service the debt for the next several years going forward?
I haven't run those numbers.
Okay.
That's not been, no.
Well, it has Jillian.
Yes, I think Julianne has a plan for doing so with or without system development fees.
Okay.
Is the way I understand her budgeting process.
So even for like the loan that we have gotten to pay for this improvement, we'll have to service that loan is around $2 million a year. So we have to raise rates. It's not a choice. It's not something that we can do. We've even looked at how can we avoid, can we avoid not building, doing the upgrades now and pushing that down the road? That's not an option because they have pushed it down the road as far as they can, and they will start penalizing us if we're not in the process of doing these upgrades. So that will be, and I think like if we get a penalty, I think Aaron had told us at the last council meeting, it's like $14 million or something, right?
It can be pretty steep. I mean, there are certain penalties we don't want to take in as a city. I would say that.
But, so we're here to get input from the public. And so if you'd like to speak, we'd like to hear what you have to say based on the total fee for water sewer. He had said before from the last council meeting that was sent out was $45.19. The new proposal, I think that he's proposing is $2,200. So if anybody'd like to speak to that.
Madam Mayor, I'm a little confused by some of this. And you said just now, you described this as he's proposing. Who's proposing this sheet here that's been handed out?
So we use our city engineer, and he has a spreadsheet of the fees, and he has the analysis that he's done to be able to justify what those fees are. If you want to explain, maybe Josh.
Yes, ma'am. And maybe I can just go through the whole process of what I sent to
Right.
now Aaron, and then Aaron sent out to y'all earlier today. So I'm just going to read that email if that sounds
Sure.
okay. All right. So since the last council meeting, we've had extensive discussions regarding how to proceed with implementing increased water and sewer development fees. As Mayor Talley mentioned, there was a lot of concern about the big jump initially. Those discussions have included talking with developers, council members, and staff. The intent of those discussions has been to inform interested parties about the process for water and sewer development fee creation, payment, and implementation. The results of those discussions is what's in front of you, which is a phased implementation policy for water and sewer development fees, as well as additional guidance and policy on how to implement the fees going forward. For clarification purposes, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, water and sewer development fee is based upon the water meter size for a connection. It's not, so if you have an 8-inch water line and you tap it with an 8-inch water line to serve a bunch of houses, the water and sewer development fee is based upon the meters for the houses. And then for residential dwelling units, there's further evaluation determined based on upon the number of bedrooms for the sewer. Fee is set up in this manner so as to correspond to the impact that the fee has on the water and sewer systems, because more bedrooms have more impact on the sewer system and water system. The proposal is for a phased implementation of water and sewer development fees. The initial base fee would be set at $1,100 for water, $1,100 for sewer for a 2-bedroom home, that being the base ERU. This would be $3,300 total for a 3-bedroom home versus $1,668 for both right now. That fee would go into place on July 1, 2022. Then there would be an increase on January 1, 2023, where the fee would increase to $1,500 for water and $1,500 for sewer, $3,000 total for 2-bedroom home. which would equal 4,500 total for a 3-bedroom home. The fee for July 1, 2023 would then be proposed to go up to very close to the maximum amount per the analysis. And it would be 2,500 for water and 1,750 for sewer, for a total of 4,250, which would be 6,375 total for a 3-bedroom home. That would be contingent upon the next budget cycle, because that would be the next fee schedule for the next fiscal year. In order to phase in in addition to that, we've also clarified / implemented a process for prepayment of fees. Developers are eligible for prepayment of fees based upon construction drawing approval or water and sewer permits. This would allow a developer to lock in a fee cost in order to prevent being hit by future increases. The benefit to the city would be the early payment of funds. A chart showing and accompanying that was the chart that Aaron has shown, and as well as the handout from both this handout and as well as the old fees.
This sheet is the old fees.
Yes, that's the current as of today fees.
Okay.
Yes. I think the process was trying to, as was discussed 2 weeks ago, the current fee of 1668 is well below what the value of the water, of the buy-in value or the incremental value of the water and sewer system.
And I'm sorry, show me where that is. I'm not seeing
Yes.
that on this sheet.
It doesn't add, you have to pull them from both sides and add them together. It's the 483 plus the 1185.
Gotcha.
Yes. sir. Think that covered, did that answer your questions and yours, Mayor?
Well-
If it answered his, then it,
Madam Mayor, the question I have is the comment that you made earlier that he also read out of the email that said, since the last meeting, we've had some discussion. Where was this discussion?
so, I mean, not the council had a discussion. I had a discussion with Josh, with Aaron. Mr. Chin was also present at that meeting. We discussed, also Chad Huffines, which is another engineer, was at that meeting. And we were trying to clarify and discuss the issues that I brought up about infill. And we decided that, and I think Aaron gave comment as to that needed to be addressed through the planning board and part of the discussion for land use plans. And then Mr. Chin had, I'm trying to remember all of the questions that you had. You had some questions that you brought up as well.
I posed some questions to Josh in regards to the fee schedule and what was originally proposed that showed the big jump, and tried to decipher new development from, and what I've come to learn, an infill development. For example, the project proposed by Jason Cox, Lee Kimry, the one we discussed at the last council meeting, those were actually infill projects where you're building townhomes, houses where there's existing water and sewer. So why should you have to, why should a developer have to pay a buy-in fee if the water and sewer lines are already there? And so I was trying to get some clarification so that we don't want to, for a small developer where you're doing something here within Graham, we don't want to burden you with a full cost of something that a new developer who's going to build, a large subdivision would be required to incur because they need water and sewer brought to where they are. And so,
Well, I don't understand the math here. At the last
Sir.
meeting, this first chart, correct me if I'm wrong, but this first chart is what was the assessment of the engineer and what was proposed and what was before the council.
the max fees. Yes,
That's
sir.
right. And then there was mention of an option B and C, which if I recall correctly, in order were 25% reduction and
And a
50% reduction.
Right.
Now, if my math is good, the first item now is more than a 50% reduction. The 2200 is, by my calculation, 51, almost 52% reduction. How do you go, and Mr. Chin, you in particular
Yeah.
repeatedly said that anything less than the full amounts that the engineer had recommended was taking money from the residents of Graham.
Right.
Now, apparently, the proposal is
I
we're going to
totally
take money from the
I
citizens of
get,
Graham.
no, I totally get where you're going there. And so a lot of the discussion was explaining the methodology that Josh used. Josh, I know that you have to give those numbers based on the methodology, but could you explain the difference and the things that you talked about regarding, like, for instance, water and sewer is not a 1 gallon per 1 gallon. Well, you don't have a meter on a house that says this is how much sewage that you're using in a house. It's just whatever gallon of water you use, they say it's a gallon of sewer, which really we all
That's
know
historically always the way
that's
it's calculated,
that's right. But
right?
just want to, can you kind of explain when you're trying to do your methodology, how that works?
Well, let me ask, if I may,
Yes.
this
I'm
question.
working my way through that.
The
Okay.
last item, the last chart on here is the sort of proposed 2023, if it were to be adopted by the council next year as a part of the budget, which still isn't up to the level that he had recommended for this year. And I guess my question is, does this analysis have to be done annually? So in other words, is this chart that's 2023 going to be out of date by the time, or is it done only periodically?
It's required to be done at least I believe the general statute says at least every 5 years. So it does not have to be done annually.
All right.
Yes. Yes, so the fee, one of the things that is changing in the fee structure is that we are going from a straight 3/4 inch meter for residential dwelling units to 3/4 inch meter for residential dwelling units and how many bedrooms are in each house. Because of the heavy impact that additional bedrooms have on the water and sewer system, especially on the wastewater capacity.
So excuse me, the old chart that's on this page
Mhm.
has no bedroom numbers.
That's
It's
correct.
just per unit, regardless of size,
That's correct.
regardless 2-bedroom, 5-bedroom, same fee.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. So the change of going from the 2-bedroom, the 3-bedroom, the 4-bedroom, and the 5-bedroom, that represents a more equitable or more, it shows more of the impact on the system. So in revising it, we revised it in order to, we are still expecting to, these are still substantial jumps from where it is now. With most permitted house, we're calling a 2-bedroom home an equivalent residential unit for the study purposes, because that's 240 gallons a day, and that's the minimum that we're allowed to permit a home per NCDEQ. So that's the reason we're using a 2-bedroom home. The most common, historically most common built home in Graham and throughout North Carolina is a 3-bedroom home, which would be the $3,300 for the which one would be the second line there, whether it's whichever chart you're looking at. That home would be going from 1668 to 3300. So in order to go from 1668 to 6,779, in the discussions, not just with council, but also with developers that were more involved in the process based upon the outreach of the city over the last 2 weeks. Their concern was, in my understanding, and obviously some of them are here, my understanding from several of them was that they were mostly concerned with the significant jump and the immediately. And so phasing it in allows for them to phase it into their cost process. So I had several of them ask about phased implementation. It appears that there were also council members who thought that
Well,
was a good idea.
excuse me just a minute to interrupt
sir.
you, to go back to the mayor and the question. You did not list, if I recall correctly, in the explanation of who the discussions were with, you did not mention that individual developers had been included in such discussions?
So we talked to Dennis Eulis, talked to Amanda Holdren, who represents several developers on the phone, and Chuck Talley also gave input.
Madam Mayor, I must protest. These discussions should be held in open with the entire discussion known and publicized. You yourself at the last meeting said, oh, you wanted transparency. You wanted transparency.
I
And then
do.
you've had these little side meetings with, pardon me to say so, your husband and other developers.
My husband is a contractor. We
Which
don't
is
do,
why
we
you
don't
should
build
go
new
to-
homes, sir.
Which is why you.
We
should
don't
go
build
to
new homes.
Extraordinary attempts to be above board. I am very concerned by that revelation. But more than that, Mayor, I also want to make this point. You described it as there was general concern at the last meeting. I believe the recording will verify this assumption, this characterization. You were the only one who raised concerns. The other 4 board members individually each voiced a willingness to go ahead and adopt the proposal as it had been presented. So now we have a situation in which, and you pressed, and I might say continued to press until they agreed to postpone it for deliberations to be continued.
I think,
And I'm very
I
concerned. to
think,
hear-
okay, well, Tom, let me just stop you there for a second.
Okay,
It was the understanding, and I hope the other council members will back me up on this, that it was Mr. Chin who was the one that said, with us getting the development fees, that was just a week prior to our meeting, that he wanted to see 50%. It wasn't me, it was Mr. Chin that said 50%, 25% reduction, 50% reduction, all of that.
before the last meeting, yes, ma'am.
That is correct.
That's my understanding.
And
And those options were therefore included in the packet.
right, and
And
it
then I
wasn't
know he-
until the meeting,
That he took you aback by saying he no longer.
and I was like, now,
supported
wait a
this.
minute, I'm expecting 50% of this fee. And what I was going to say is for anybody that's under contract, because I had heard from people like Dennis Eulis and other people that had said, what, you can't do that to people that are already under contract. That's the issue. You can't do that based on contract. I mean, people are already under these contracts, and you can't do that much of an increase to someone that already has a legal I don't feel like that's fair to developers to do that. I absolutely believe that we can get to wherever we need to go to, but we can't get there in one night. It's unfair to tell people with no
understand that.
notice.
I understand that's your opinion, and you voiced it repeatedly that night, and you're summarizing it again tonight, but that was not the opinion of the other members of the council at the time of the discussion. But all that is sort of notwithstanding, Mayor. My concern is that what y'all apparently have come up with in the form of this little chart with a phased in rate schedule was arrived at in little huddles with special interest, including, as you're describing it, your husband. And these should have been done in an open meeting.
Well,
Absolutely should have been done in an open meeting.
it kind of happened organically and not really in the way that you're describing. So it's
It's the way you described it, Mayor.
well, I apologize if I described it that way. What I'm saying to you, that's that's the impression that you have. But basically, I didn't even know about the meeting. That's how much I didn't even know. Aaron had,
May I
yeah, sure.
step in? The meeting that resulted in seeing how to develop an incremental phasing of the fee schedule came about where it was going to be a discussion between myself, Chad Huffine, and Chuck Talley. That was the original 3. We were just going to educate me as to the impact of the fees that were going to be, if we went with the new fees, the impact that would have upon developers. Then I was asked to invite Aaron. And he in turn invited Josh. It was not a planned meeting. It was one that was trying to understand the whole business of the tap fees, the system development fees, to make sense of that. And it was through an open discussion.
Not open to anybody, only open to that little group.
It was,
Am I
It was-
misunderstanding?
if anybody else had, it was not intended to shut anybody out. In fact, Mr. Eulis called in and he was told of, here's the approach we were going to take is an incremental approach to get from the current fees to the proposed fees that, as Josh said, those were the maximum allowable fees that, according to the way it's calculated, that we could impose in the coming year. So instead of doing it in one step, it was proposed, how about incrementally, i.e. in 6-month steps, so that come next 1 July, we are basically at the fees that, the maximum allowable fees.
And I walked in on the meeting. I wasn't invited to the meeting. I didn't know anything about the meeting, and I walked in on the meeting. And I will say
And-
that I probably had absolutely no influence other than to talk to Dennis Eulis and say, hey, can you basically, I just was trying to relay the question that he had to them. Josh was really the one that had already kind of on his own, I guess from the meeting last time, would you say? And he was the one that has this spreadsheet and is working on these things. I mean, there are going to be meetings that council members have with constituents when we're trying to work through issues. That's just going to happen. We don't need to call a special meeting to every single work session in which I have a meeting. If there's 3 council members or more that are having a meeting, we will absolutely notify the public. But if I'm going to meet with this constituent or that constituent to work on something, I am not in any way trying to shut anybody out or not let anybody know about that. I'm literally the one that just told you that we had a discussion. I want to disclose everything and any information that you have a question about. But all I'm there really is to get information about what, I didn't even know they were having the meeting. Aaron, did I know that they were having the meeting?
No, and if I could jump in real quick, I mean, everything is still on the table. So what's being presented right now is an option. And I know Josh was trying to come up with different options that council could consider if there were hangups with the options that were presented with the 25, 50% options prior. But those are still on the table. So the true amount that Josh had with the analysis is still there. The 25% reduction is still there. The 50% reduction is still there. The option of doing 50% for July 1 and then 25 January could be an option. All of these are out there. This is for council to be able to digest and determine which one of them they would like to move forward with. Nothing was decided with the meeting. We were just brainstorming of options that could be presented for the whole entire council to make a decision.
Well, apparently this little sheet was what was decided as the options.
We didn't have that sheet.
We didn't have that.
We didn't
As
have
I
that.
understand, that's what the email was. that
Now,
sent it
the
around to
numbers
everybody.
were, when, in our discussion yesterday,
You just have a
there were
total
no numbers
misrepresentation.
discussed. The question
I
was,
don't have
how,
access to that. Neither
how-
does Mr. Chin.
With this fee schedule
Correct.
options. Okay,
yeah,
but in other words, that's before
Yeah.
the public
Yes.
gets to know
yeah,
about it.
yesterday's discussion, there were no numbers. It was a question of how can we incrementally increase the fees so that within a year's time, we would be at almost the maximum rate as proposed. And it wasn't until this afternoon that Josh finished doing the calculations and sent them to us as here's a consideration. A phased approach, spreading the fees increases into 6-month increments. I mean, until this afternoon, we had not seen these numbers.
All right.
And I'm perfectly happy. If you feel in any way that I have some sort of conflict, I by all means am happy to not vote on it at all. My husband and I have done historic renovation for years and years. We do not typically build new home construction. That is not what we do. Do I understand, construction, and do I understand reading plans, and do I understand that contractors get into contracts that they're legally bound to, and they estimate their cost and how that affects affordable housing and the cost of the home? Yes, I do. But I don't have a dog in this fight. It doesn't matter to me, other than I'm just trying to protect everybody from some sticker shock. I mean, Dennis Eulis, when he was calling me, it was 66 homes, and he was like, this could change, this could be $200,000 difference. You don't have that built in. He's already got his loan from the bank. I mean, I'm sorry, but I do care about our
I understand that.
constituents, and that's what this is about. I mean, I also care about our taxpayers, and somebody made a comment that said that Mr. Chin and I were at opposite ends in the last meeting. And I said, well, I didn't feel that way. I'm actually in agreement with Mr. Chin in regards to that. Any development that happens in Graham, developers should be paying a fee for. I am the one that brought up initially to the council to even revise the fees, because the fees need to be more reflective of the cost. We are spending over $1 million a year on engineering fees. And we need to have fees that are more appropriate with and collect those fees from development. So I think Mr. Chin and I are on the same page. My concern from last year was how we implement it. It's not fair with 24 hours notice. I mean, I didn't even have 24 hours notice. I had no idea Mr. Chin was not going to go forward with what he himself had proposed, which was a 50% increase. I didn't know what the numbers were until 4:30 today that our city engineer was going to come up with. And again, as Mr. Holland says, it's all on the table, and we're here to hear from the constituents and the building community as to what they would like to see done.
All right. Madam Mayor, I'm just going to summarize a couple of points that I think are incredibly important. Number one is that this should have been conducted in an open session of this council with all of the participants who've been mentioned included. Mayor, as you know, I have defended you on many occasions against criticism that you have had special considerations, or that your husband and his construction aspect have had special considerations. And I want to be able to continue to defend that. But what has been described in this context is very disappointing, and is very much the kind of thing that leads people to believe that there is a little special operation going on behind the scenes in which certain people get special consideration. And that is very, very alarming. I would say I have no dog in the fight about what the fees are. I don't want to say I don't care, but it doesn't have any effect on me. But what I do find, just as a lay follower of the discussion, is that we go from rates that were at last meeting, and this meeting has more than 50% cut in the first example, and then a third cut, which is more than a quarter by my math, for the second. And so, they've been reduced an awful lot. And That may be a good idea. I don't disagree particularly with any of your substantive reasons for having had a concern 2 weeks ago and having persuaded the council to consider it. But I think what's transpired in between has not been good, open government.
I will just say this. I think your perception that there was some sort of influence on Josh is incorrect. I think when Josh came to the meeting, that was supposed to be between, who were the original people? Because I don't know, I just don't want to
Chad
misspeak.
Huffine,
Chad Huffines.
Chuck Talley. and
Chuck
Aaron.
Talley and
Me.
himself. That when Josh got there, Josh was there. Was this something from the last meeting that you were already working on? Did we in any way give any influence as to what those numbers should be?
No, not the numbers. No, we talked about the different options and that phasing it, which I'd already had some discussions internal to Ally Williams about that being a possibility.
So basically in the meeting, if I were to summarize the meeting and what happened in the meeting, it was more of an explanation to both Mr. Chin. When I walked in, I wanted an explanation as to what they were discussing. And one of the things that they were talking about is doing also a flow test. I think to get like more information and stuff like that about, the cost and things like that, but more of an explanation of his methodology and that. So we're not trying to convince him of anything. He was already from the last meeting doing whatever he was doing. I mean, I didn't influence him to come up with these numbers. I didn't know what these numbers were until 4:30 today. So I don't think Mr. Chin tried to influence him one way or the other. We're just trying to get information and work on this project. I mean, literally, that's all we were trying to do.
Madam Mayor, I don't want to belabor the point any further. You said at the outset, another issue described, changing the topic a little bit, is you described that between, if I understood it right, between Josh's original analysis and the time things had come to the council, you described it as a lot of fees were cut. I don't understand what that meant.
No. I'm saying from the time that the planner that we had, the planner did certain sections, the planning director did certain sections, and Josh did certain sections. And what I'm talking about is in the flat fee schedule, we cut a lot of those fees that were being proposed by the planning director. There was a $500.
Different from the sheets that we're looking at tonight.
Correct, different from that section, but still in the overall fee schedule that we discussed.
Okay.
So like, for instance, there was an appeals fee to appeal something that you didn't agree with from the planning department. That was a $500 additional fee to make any appeal. The council did not feel that that was fair or adequate to have to appeal, especially pay a $500 fee when the original fees are usually around $200. The conditional rezoning fee is different than the general rezoning fee. There was a lot of fees that were cut by both Aaron Holland's review initially before it came to the council, and then at our meeting. Were you at the last meeting, or did
Yes.
you just watch the video?
Two weeks ago? Yes.
Yes. So at that meeting, we cut a lot of those fees as well. I'm sorry, I don't have the marked up version, but I know that there was like, I'm going to say a third to a half of the fees were cut.
It was even before then. It was
Okay,
it was our budget meeting that we had.
I'm
I
sorry.
was not at that. The
I'm
budget
getting,
meeting, no,
okay.
I was not at. All
I'm
right.
sorry, I'm getting confused about that. We've had a lot of meetings about this.
Yeah.
Okay, at the budget workshop, there was a lot of fees that were brand new fees, and I think that
That's where they were eliminated.
That's
They're
where they were.
eliminated
eliminated.
or-
Discussion.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Mayor, you've been most tolerant. Thank you. Thank the council. I would just raise concern that if y'all continue down this path, I think you're courting many, many problems in terms of violations of the open meetings law, in terms of losing the public's trust, and in terms of raising the appearance, if not the actuality, of conflicts of interest.
Well, I hope I've given you an explanation as to what happened, that 3 people had a meeting. I walked into a meeting. I think somebody had a question and called Aaron Holland. Aaron invited Josh. Josh was not invited to the meeting initially by Mr. Chin. That's how it happened. I hope that you'll understand that we had no influence on what his amounts were going to be. We didn't know what the amounts were going to be. We didn't know if they were going to be higher, lower, whatever they were. We were there to simply get information so that we could digest what was being proposed and how the methodology was that it happened.
In truth, the original meeting was to discuss infills. Because my
projects.
question that I raised after the last city council meeting was the matter of you got fees for new development, but you don't have anything for someone doing an infill project. You know, for somebody doing something to help maintain the viability of Graham. Because it's all or nothing. And so one of my questions to Josh was, what additional fee are you charging for a new development that shouldn't be charged to a project that's within the current Graham city limits? You know, the one either proposed by Jason Cox or Lee Kimry or anyone else who's building, you know, basically they bought a piece of property, maybe it's dilapidated or whatever, and they're improving on it. And my question was, why should that developer be charged the full freight if he was, as if he were building a brand new development?
With roads, and see, this is the reason why I asked for the fees to be looked at, is because we are spending a tremendous amount of money on engineering fees. And, you know, it is the time that they are spending to do reviews on things. I mean, what would you say on average it costs for reviewing like a conditional rezoning? For like a 700 unit development?
A 700 unit development would be expensive.
You haven't had one that large.
Yes. I think,
Although we have had a 700 unit development.
oh, it's been a while.
I know, but we have had them.
I can pull up and tell you what we spent on Riley's Meadow, which is a 400 home subdivision.
For instance, there was a lot of things where those things are, okay, so when you go out and you put in a new road and you have to proof it and you have these people, the Burke has to go out there, our, you know, our staff has, our planner has to review these things. The TRC has to review these things, which is the fire department, the police department, everybody that's on TRC has to take time out of their day to review these things. None of those fees are reflective in our fee schedule.
Being recouped.
Right, correct. So, I mean, you know, we have to, I think developers are more understanding of fees from the city if they feel that they're getting something for something. So having the engineering fees that we have, we need to be making sure that, how is it fair for somebody that's expanding the city limits? They're coming here 1 month and getting an annexation done and expanding what our capacity has. You know, we have to have more capacity to be able to have that because now we've just grown the city. versus somebody that's gonna, like, I think Mr. Faust went and built a duplex over here right off of Webb Avenue as an infill. I mean, used to be a house there, so I'm sure there's probably a tap there or whatever at some point. And the water and sewer is already down the road. And in our land use plan as it stands now, we're supposed to be encouraging infill. Why does that person pay the same fee as somebody that is just now going to add 400 new homes, and we have to do now we have to maintain the road in however many years when the road fails or needs patching or whatever. Yes, all those things are turned over to the city for free, but now they're our responsibility. They're the city's responsibility. And I just think that we need to have a fair and open discussion about the development fees and how that affects the city. And we need to also be looking at the idea of encouraging infill, because that's the least costly to the city as far as development goes. If you were to build 400 homes in infill versus 400 homes that are being annexed into the city, obviously the cost to the city would be far less. So at least in the design stage for sure, but that was not reflective in our fee schedule because they just paid a flat fee no matter where they were building or what they were doing. There wasn't an annexation fee, and that obviously cost us money. We have to advertise it, all of those things. There wasn't, if there's an adjustment to the rezoning, there wasn't a fee for that. There was just a lot of things that are typical in other cities that we didn't have in our fee schedule because our fee schedule had not been revised in, I don't know, decades. They just arbitrarily just always just said 10% increase instead of actually like looking at the development fees and coming up with a very fair explanation for what you're charging for.
Again, thank you. I think I've made clear my concerns, current and long term.
Thank you. Always trying to make sure that we address you. Thank you, Tom. Is there someone else that would like to discuss the fees?
Chris Faust, 1851 South Main Street. I know housing is always by staff and always look down because you don't bring supposedly nothing to the city. But when you're talking about the infill, we put the water and sewer in the ground. We make the taps. We spend $30,000 to $40,000 a lot. So why is the infield? I mean, yeah, I paid tap fees down on Washington Street, but it was whatever it is, $1,200, $1,500. But you figure 1,000 foot of street is what, or 800 foot of street's what I used up. I'd much rather pay $3,000 than have to put 800 foot of street in. I don't know why the infield is going to get less, looked at different, because all they're doing is, let's just say you're upfitting the water, building up town, which I think is great. All you're paying is a tap fee. So we put the water, the sewer, build the streets to the city standards. And I know it costs the traffic, the garbage and everything. I get that. It don't really bring nothing to the city, but it brings people. People come to the cities. People spend money in all these restaurants up here that y'all talk about. When the Lamb's Chapel was wanting to build in Burlington, they didn't want it. But they didn't realize how much traffic it was going to bring to K&W or the cutting board. You got to think about that when you're trying to put these fees up. These places, I mean, asphalt's double, concrete's double. And now you want to hit these people with 300%. 300% is what I done in my head. I don't know if that's exact. Somebody can do it on the calculator. But
Is that from the new or from the old?
it don't matter.
No, but I agreed. I said at the last meeting and pleaded with the council, but I thought
I
the
don't know
fees
what
were
y'all
too
done for a
high.
living, but we got to go out here and make payroll. We have to go out here and build houses. And you think putting these fees in is going to pay for this? What about when it slows down, which is coming? And this will slow it down even more. It's coming. You can't tax yourself into wealth. I don't know
Yeah.
what anybody here done for a living. I know what Jennifer does. She knows what it means. Don't matter. But you can't tax because if you're depending on these fees to pay for this 70 million, the math is not gonna work in the end. I'm just saying, there's no way. And part of the problem, I've never believed in them. But what did Walmart pay? Look at the 6-inch meter right here. I seen,
The incentives,
what did they pay? What did Lidl pay?
I know that one of them, I found out the other day, it was waived for them.
No, there we go. So we've been kicking it down the court, kicking them.
I didn't vote
but
for
the
that.
developers- I know, I'm not telling you, I'm just pleading
Yeah.
the case here.
Yeah,
Is this, you just can't tax yourself into wealth, y'all. And there's no way these numbers are going to work, because I'm telling you, we've seen it. It's slowing down. It's gonna almost not stop. This is a great area, don't get me wrong, but it's not, these houses aren't gonna be selling like they have been the last 5 years. Graham is not gonna keep going like it is for the next 5 to 7 years, that what it's done in the last 18 months. So you got to remember, y'all using them numbers, oh yeah, we're gonna take, if we do this, we sell these many houses, this is where this is gonna be in 3 years. We're gonna pay this $70 million off. That is not gonna happen. So I'm glad y'all let us call us tonight, but I don't think nobody from Glenwood come. And I've seen somebody from Horton back there, which is 4-star. And Jimmy Collins, these guys have got this stuff on the ground. Dennis Eulis. Just the one that I know Horton doing, that's close to 400 houses. You 400 times 4,000. Do the math. Glenwood Homes, he said he's got 96 right now, starting down on South Main Street. That's a lot of money that nobody's been looking, that nobody's seen this coming. And like I said, I'm grateful. I know Tom's not grateful with y'all having a little meeting, but I'm glad we know about it, because I didn't know nothing about it till this
Right.
week. So, but I just want y'all to think about it, because Josh and them do a good job. I just want y'all to think about, this is gonna hurt.
well, the first proposal, right now, it calls for water and sewer, how much? For a typical 2-bedroom,
Yeah, so for the increment, currently as of
right
today,
now, yeah.
right now, a 2-bedroom is $1,668.
So if what he's proposing is that to go to 2,200 now, before at the last meeting that I felt was 4,500.
It was 300%
Yeah,
about doing the math.
and,
Yeah.
and what is your feeling about 2,200? Is that still too high?
Well,
There was
I'm not
another,
a vertical builder. I do the development. I can tell you what it's costing now. Some of these lots cannot bring what they're costing to get on the ground. They're just depending on the housing to sell to, they're making it up there. I mean, the numbers aren't working no more. And this is going to bring it that much worse. It may back up, so lumber backed up a little bit, some of this stuff backed up, but I don't see the ductile iron. I don't see the asphalt and the concrete. I don't see that backing up right now. So
one of the things that I wasn't clear about, and I think other people weren't clear about either, because that I asked in the meeting, this was why I said I was trying to get clarification, and I think Mr. Chin was as well, when I asked this question. But can you explain how Mebane does it with I was understanding when I had read it initially.
this ain't Mebane though.
No, I know, but
This ain't Mebane, this ain't Cary, this ain't Apex, and we can't compare.
no.
apples to
I'm not comparing it to Mebane. I'm just saying in Mebane, this is how they calculate it, and it's different than the way we calculate it. And I was calculating it the way Mebane calculated. And Dennis, when I talked to him, he was also doing that. So can you just give a little explanation about if you have 4 apartment units and each unit has, I don't know, 20 apartments in it that are 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, whatever. Can you explain what that tap is and how that works? Because in Mebane, you would put the road into the units and then you would start charging individual fees. Now that really gets astronomical.
Yeah, we pay tap fees, and then we have to pay to put the tap in.
Right.
So, I mean,
And pay for the meter.
and double, yeah, well, you're double
Yeah.
dipping the
Right.
developers here. And that was what I was, the businesses, the incentives, I know there's jobs, but I think it's $125, $125 jobs on the smaller end of house, per house, up to 150 jobs per house that's under construction. If you figure from the footing to the roof, the mills, the sawmills and everything. You multiply that by 100, that's way more than Walmart does. And we're the ones having to pay these, and then they waive Walmart and Lidl. So I just don't think that's fair. I just want y'all to think about this because
I did think about that, and I just want you to have this consideration. Josh, when we talked about, that was another question that I asked was at that meeting, how much was what was the size of the tap for the one that was waived?
Yeah, I have not gone back and looked that up, but
It's
I
12.
believe it's a 12-inch water line connection. I don't think it's a 12-inch. I don't think it's a 12-inch meter. I think it's a 6 or an 8-inch meter.
12-inch fire line. Yeah.
Yeah,
that-
the
that-
fire line's not metered. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think it's a 12-inch connection. I think it's a 6 or an 8-inch meter.
Just remember that when you're
So-
looking at the incentives,
No,
'cause
but this is what I'm saying. If you don't have a fee for that, then where is that coming from? That is coming from the taxpayers. That
yeah,
incentive
and
is
it's
coming
eating-
from
it's
the
eating- it's
taxpayers,
eating out of
right?
your water and sewer
So,
plant.
but this is what I'm saying. If their fee is, I don't know, whatever, $195,000 or whatever, and they get an incentive for 100,000, then that's not coming from the taxpayers if they were to get an incentive.
Why not? Why not? Because it's
It's
using
just,
your water and using your sewer.
I understand that, but right now they're not being charged that. I don't know what the fee is now, but it's not nearly that. It's not
I
nearly
understand,
that
I understand
price.
that, but what I'm saying is they're probably hurting probably Walmart and them are using more water than half of all the subdivision on the south side put together. I don't know
Yeah,
that. I don't know that. I don't know the.
It's always,
360
it's
gallons a
always
day
the
per
large
house, yeah.
developers of industrial property that get the
Uses the money.
incentives. It's not any of the local
And they use the water.
developers, correct. I totally agree with you.
So
And I'm,
just consider, you can't tax. I heard us say the numbers and I seen Josh got, whoever figured that we're gonna pay this off in so many years. I just don't see that happening and I appreciate the time.
thank you so
Thank-
much for being here. Is there someone else that would like to speak on the system development fees?
Hello, my name's Nathan Sawyer with Heritage Homes, current president of the Alamance Caswell Home Builders Association. Glad to see so many of our members here tonight. Couple notes I was taking and talking points I had was the, Mebane, exorbitant growth, water and sewer fees in Mebane are $2,500 on average. City of Greensboro, $2,255. Swepsonville, I paid $90. Graham currently is around 2,800, Burlington around 2,100. 300% increase is going to put you guys way outside of your competition. And it's just not fair. Walmart getting their fee waived is equivalent to 50 houses that we have to pick up the bill for as home builders. You quote 2-bedroom taps versus 3-bedroom taps. Almost nobody builds a 2-bedroom house. You can't get comps for it. Can't sell it worth anything to make any money on it. Can't afford the property to build a 2-bedroom house on. Just makes those numbers look better. You were going through the numbers of 72 million or 74 million that you needed. I was adding up with the different loans, the grants, the potential state input and the savings of the last 20 years. That brings us up to 102 million for a $74 million project. What are we doing with the excess?
So the loan that we have is for the improvement is for the capital improvement. And the $1 million is money that we have asked for, but I don't really have a lot of hope that the budget will be passed. And I think we can't really bank on that. Again, we will look at the fees again in January, and that doesn't mean that we stop working on it. There were some ideas. Josh, do you want to mention those ideas that we have between now and January?
Yeah. So Yeah, we've talked about submitting a FOIA reduction letter to NCDEQ, which would allow the reduction of the, right now, the minimum single family home that we can permit is 240 gallons a day. And that's because it's 120 gallons per bedroom per state rule. We can submit a FOIA reduction letter, which we think we can support for approval from DEQ here to make that number go from 120 to 80, in which case the 240 gallons in the analysis would then become a 3-bedroom home. So you would be looking at, it actually skews the numbers some on some other stuff, but basically you're looking at a third reduction in the fees at that point. So that makes a significant difference, but we can't promise that we're going to get that reduction. The city submitted one about 5 years ago and it was denied, but there's been change in staff at DEQ and we think that we can support it, and we're hopeful for getting that passed.
And Mebane was successful in getting theirs passed.
Mebane
So-
has a flow reduction letter.
So they have a flow reduction letter, and that, I mean, that was significant for me to learn that in that conversation. I was glad that I heard that information. I was glad Mr. Chin heard that information because, what you are spending, what he's doing his analysis on, I feel is an inflated number realistically, because the same amount of flow that comes out of your home for sewer is not 1-to-1 with water.
Correct.
And that's, I mean, everybody knows you fill up, some people have pools, some people water their yards, some people, wash their cars, you have leaks, there's all sorts of things. So I think doing the flow test shows good faith on the city's part to really get a true cost for what our system is and trying to make sure that the fees are reflective of that. You just have to understand that the same things that developers and contractors are going through is what has caused this problem to go from a $32 million project to a $74 million project in literally 1 year. And being restrained on where you can get the money from is really difficult. We don't have the $15 million in water and sewer grants yet. We're hoping to be able to do that. That's why I didn't make that argument that day, but that's an argument that I'm making now, that in my mind justifies doing an implemented plan, which I don't feel like I necessarily had the entire council's support on, but us trying to get clarification about his methodology and how he came up with this gives us the information that we can have to advocate for our constituents. And so I thought coming into that meeting last week, we were going to be passing 50% of what that was. And that was still an increase, but I was, didn't feel like it would be a fallout with the development community about that. So, and I didn't want the rest of the council to think that, because it kept coming up, well, we've been discussing this for a while and people should know. And I said, well, no one's had to pay the new fee. When you're going to hear from people is when they go down to pay their fees and they have to pay this large amount. So Aaron, if the 15 million that we've applied for in several different grants, if we get that in, part of what we're having to pay for as well is a new water line to go from the water treatment plant back into the city, which is, I think that grant is for how much?
Well, that collection of grants that you're speaking on cover a long list of infrastructure projects that we have identified. I think Josh is, I forgot how many, it was like 17 on the list. We have a priority list that's pretty long just because we have aged infrastructure here in the city. But there is no surplus of funds when it comes to the money that we're trying to get. We're just trying to soften the blow.
Okay, that brings up a better question. Aged infrastructure. You've known about this improvement for 20 years. has anybody considered raising water and sewer rates for the citizens
We did,
rather than just sticking it all to the builders?
we
That's,
did,
that's what we just did.
we just did it. And
Just got, okay, my ignorance, but,
30%.
and then how long is this improvement project supposed to take from start to finish on your estimate?
Which one?
The, whatever the state's
Water treat-
mandating that you do.
The wastewater plant,
Yeah,
it's 4.5 years, right?
4.5, yeah.
I think it's end of 26.
the first year, we have to pay an origination fee, which is over $1 million, just in debt service, right?
Yeah. And to
And
be
then-
clear.
And then every year, I think it's like $2 million in debt service.
Yeah, we're addressing we are addressing the cost currently with the rates that the citizens are having to pay. So
Okay.
it's being captured in that way. These fees aren't a sole way of catching any of that money. We're not paying for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade by doing these fees. So if there was no other building going on, we're still having to pay for these upgrades that we're talking about doing over here at the wastewater treatment plant. And as it stands, we're doing it through our rates and fees.
through a 4-year loan for a project that's gonna take that long.
It's not 4-year loan. It's
Didn't you say it was 40-year loan?
it's the
4-year
depends on the
build.
time to build.
4-year build.
Right.
Okay. So 4-year build, excuse me, I misunderstood you. 4-year build, wouldn't it make more sense to raise the rates over a 4-year period rather than all upfront in a year's time
Which rates? You talking about for the citizens or what you're seeing?
for the
currently?
water and sewer fees?
But that's not looked at as covering the cost of the wastewater treatment plant.
It's
So
covering
the
something.
fees that the user fees that the citizens are paying, we are incrementally raising those each year. So that's being handled different from what you're seeing here. This is what the analysis that Josh looked at. This is what, based on the cost of what it would be to get the buy-in costs and all these other things, this is what he's basing that number on. So that's separate, even though it's under the same area.
I guess what's the hurriedness of raising these rates 300% in 18 months?
I'm not sure if it's a hurriness. I think it was due for us to do an analysis. And this is where we are, it just all coming together at the same time, but it was due.
How is your analysis so far out of line with all your neighboring municipalities? How come none of them have had to do it with the growth they've had, the aging infrastructure they've had, the things that they've had to address?
It's not. You're getting a discount. In most places, you're getting a significant discount.
Okay, I'll rephrase. How are they able to do that?
That wasn't the question. The question was about the analysis. The analysis is correct. The analysis is per AWWA and the general statute. And it shows that the dollar per gallon, and then you divide it back out. In a lot of places, they are taking that analysis and saying, okay, this is what it is, and then they're backing off of it. That's something that Graham, as a council, can decide to do or not to do. But essentially they are incentivizing that development through a lower buy-in, lower water and sewer funds, water and sewer development fees.
Well, from the building side of it, building costs have risen 21% nationally in the last 6 months. If you guys raise your rates 300%, that's going to raise the average cost of building a house in Graham to 24%. The average new home in Graham as of April 2022 sold for $320,200. That's a gross margin to a builder, if we're doing everything perfect and we're not paying all the other increases we're incurring, of 20%, $64,000. Half of that, which we hope to be our profit, and that would be $34,000 or $32,000, excuse me. So if you raise your rates 300%, that's going to be 30% of my net profit. And then you add a 6% real estate fee on top of that. I'm not making any money. There's no incentive for me to build and ground. I'll leave it on that. Thank you.
So just to clarify on what you said, what was being proposed from last meeting would have been a 282% increase. And what's being proposed now, I think, is a 37% increase. Is that somewhere around right? What's the percentage increase that you're proposing now? I didn't have the exact numbers. I just used base numbers.
I had not done that math. Give me just a second. About 30%.
I think it's, isn't it more
Yeah,
than 30%?
2,200.
500, the current fees is basically $1,700. And we're proposing the first increment is $500. And that's a 29.5% increase.
Yeah.
For 1 July, going from $1,700 to $2,200.
30% increase.
But now, is that on 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom, but we don't build it. Well, can I follow up real quick?
So can you do it on a 3-bedroom, Josh?
You guys
What
think
it was versus what it is now?
12 months from now is a long time to a lot of people. To a builder, it's a blink of an eye. It takes an average of 8 to 10 months to build a house. So 30% today is no better than 288% or whatever it is a year and a half from now. That's the same number to us. It doesn't matter if it's going up incrementally that fast.
Well, the total fee that's being proposed in January, and again, we'll have these flow tests done by then and know from, is it DEQ? DEQ, whether we would have that letter of 80 gallons. The fee that Josh proposed when he did his evaluation was to go up to 3,000 in January. So are you, is that the number that you're wanting to know the percentage of?
No, I just think we're better off. How long does it take when you apply for the flow update?
We don't know.
You don't know? 6 months, 9 months,
It could
12
be
months?
30 days, it could be 90 days. It's unclear.
If it's only 30, 90 days, should we not try that avenue first before we just go ahead and raise the rates? An exorbitant amount?
I mean, I think that, you know, we have to go up on rates. It's
No, I
just
under-
what
I
amount
understand that.
that it is. And so,
My son's always telling me something that kind of sticks in the back of my mind. He's always saying, Dad, slow your roll.
yeah, well, I'm saying, you know, when we literally got the analysis, I think a week before we had to make a decision on it. And it's several pages. I don't know how many pages it is, but it was a lot of time and energy put into trying to look at that. But he has a certain methodology he has to follow based on the credentialing he has as an engineer. And we can't change that. The only thing that we can do is work on that from this day forward and try to apply to DEQ to get a lower amount for the analysis. You have to justify these things, just like Duke Energy has to justify their cost back to
I
their
understand.
users as well. So we do have to go up, but to act like, I mean, it's a big difference from us being able to, what I thought was being presented at the last meeting was 50% of the 282% increase. And so 50% of those fees were more in line with what I think Josh, I don't know, how did you come up with this schedule? So we didn't, yeah, we didn't discuss that.
If you look at the numbers, they're actually pretty close to 50 for July 1, 2022, it's pretty close to 50%. And January 1, 2023 is pretty close to 25%, but I like round numbers. So I made them round numbers and what's on there.
Okay.
That, I mean, honestly, I know Tom smiled at that at least, but that's why there's the numbers. And I want to be clear, the July 1, 2023 numbers, that's a round number that's on there. It could be the maximum amount. It could be something slightly different, slightly higher. I also point out that if you did get a flow reduction in, sometime before January 1, 2023, you could obviously, as a council, amend the fee schedule at any point in time. And so if you adopted January 1, 2023 of a number, and then or say that you did the maximum allowed or a 50% number or whatever, if you got a flow reduction, you could walk in the next meeting, I assume with appropriate public notice, and change the fee schedule and, to incorporate that in.
Madam Mayor, if I may ask a question.
Sure.
I believe we were quoted at one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, if memory serves me correctly, that the city of Graham was losing money on some of these water meters and water taps. Is that correct?
So the water meters, that was handled in the budget. What we charge for the water meters, I think were like, was it 200 or something, and they were costing 230?
Yes, ma'am, Bonnie. On the water meters, the meter fee, and it's a different chart that's in the fee schedule. On the water meter itself, the city was losing money. The fee was costing more than what the water meter
Right,
fee
okay.
was.
But we fixed that in the budget. That
In the-
was, and now it's three.
Well, you haven't actually, because it's in the fee schedule.
Oh, okay.
But and then the tap fees was the same thing. And so that's the reason that those numbers increased.
Okay.
Those don't, the meter fee matters for single family home developers. The tap fee doesn't generally, because they're making their own taps as part of a subdivision.
And while I sympathize with the builders, because I know all the prices for everything has gone up, and we're all feeling that, but we can't be expected to absorb that for you guys, any of that for you guys, because your costs have gone up. I mean, we can't not raise our fees appropriately, just because your costs have gone up. And to be quite honest, and I'll say this for me, I think the rate of residential growth in Graham over the last 18 months has been quite alarming. I don't really want to see a huge increase on it or to continue at this pace even that we've been going. I mean, for me personally, that's my feeling on it, is that Graham residentially has exploded. Everybody wants to come here. And, we're going to have to adjust in some way. We've got more and more people using the water, using the sewer, and costs have to go up. I understand what you're saying, that 280% that's a little alarming.
Well,
Agree, but,
Graham has grown clearly. So is the tax base and the tax revenue. I know that
understand
that
that.
can't be used for the water and sewer, as you stated
yeah,
earlier.
we can't, yeah.
So, but last thing I'll ask is, come January, I wouldn't vote on a rate raise. I ask that you don't vote on a rate raise now for January. Vote on that in January after you've had a chance to get a reduction. In 25 years of building homes, I've never seen rates come down. I've never seen taxes be less. If you vote for an approved rate increase now, and it doesn't need to be at that increase later, I don't think that savings will be passed back down to us. It's just historical, not just in.
I will say that I think it's the intent of the council to readdress fees in January. But the reason why I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but this came from the last meeting that we had, was I had said to Aaron in the meeting, if we put the fees up in the planning department so people know what to expect and have an expectation, it's not a shock to them. So I don't know what the rest of the council feels, but I feel like we do need to approve something with the known, like our promise. That's what I would suggest to the council. Our promise to the constituents is that we will have another meeting for January, once we have an explanation and more information, to look at fees again. But at least you would have some knowledge and something to be able to base contracts on if in fact we don't get approved for the flow reduction and our construction costs do not go down. We have done everything that I know of. If there is anything that I have missed that you guys can think of, but we've tried to write things into our contract with the wastewater treatment upgrade, that if construction costs go down, that our overall costs go down. We've talked to our attorneys to see, what else we can do, but there's a very specialized group of people that do that kind of work, and they're in high demand, and they can basically charge whatever they want to. And so we are on the hook for it. And we have no choice but to do the upgrade. It's environmental pressures and mandates that are coming down federally and state. And I mean, there's no other option that we have but to do the upgrade, because the penalties would be substantial. Because, I actually asked, I'm a practical person. I'm like, could we pay penalties for the next 2 years and wait till construction costs go down? He's like, I don't think you want to know what those fees are. He said they're like $14 million or something. Because I was like, well, they can't be 74 million, right? That's what I was thinking. How awful would it be to just pay the fees? And they're like, that's not an option. So if there's anything that I'm not thinking of, we're happy to hear from the constituents as to what that is. But we've put a lot of work and a lot of time and energy and trying to come up with an understanding. I was just shocked when his analysis came out and I started running the numbers. And then I think Mr. Chin had proposed a 50% reduction. And then when he started looking at the methodology, then he was like, no, we want to get 100%. And then I was like, wait a minute, why, wait a minute, I wasn't ready for that. And I think at least we should hear from our building community. So appreciate you being here today.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak?
I'm Tom Hall with Windsor Homes and Windsor Commercial, and we do a lot of business in Graham, and did not really come, I got caught off guard by this. Maybe it's my fault, but we just finished up about 100 houses off Rogers Road. We got another couple hundred that we're going to be building down in that area, and we've done some industrial buildings in the area. But we build houses in 12 counties around the state, 6 counties in the triad. So that's a lot of municipalities. And I'm not going to get into the detail. Everybody's hit all this. You've heard all those facts, figures of what this does to us. But I think it's more about process. I think that there needs to be more of a collaborative early on discussion with the building industry. And we do that well in a few counties that I'm in, and we do it very well in Guilford County. And I, quite frankly, I'm going to take this situation back to the government affairs group that we deal with in Guilford County and express my interest and concern of them coming and see if we can't get some interest. But most things that happen in this nature, it's a collaborative effort between the industry and the councils and the people, the city making those decisions. And I think that's hugely important. I hope there's no vote tonight. I think it's been rushed. I think it's been too quick. And I think you've heard all the other facts about things. And that's really all I have to say. But I would hope that there's nothing that happens tonight. And I think I see the looks on their faces. And I think you agree that we do need more collaborative community. We can do this in sessions outside of having to even be here that aren't secretive or anything else. They're open, they're with city staff and so on. And I hope we can make that happen.
We need a vote because we won't have a fee schedule. we would have to have a vote because we don't have a fee schedule for July 1. So we would have to have a vote of some sort.
Well, I hope it's something that's a little more favorable that then could be considered a little bit further.
Anyone else that would like to speak on the fee schedule?
West for 604 Chalkwater Court. It appears that I'm in the minority here tonight. I know you're representing both sides, and I've been enlightened by a lot of the comments, and I do understand. But how are we gonna pay $74 million? That's my question. You know what I'm saying? I'm here as a resident of Graham. I've lived here 28 years. Historically, I've known for 28 years that our fee schedule has been extremely low. Now, all of a sudden, this has come up with the having to possibly raise the rates. I'm not saying, I kind of like the thing where 6 months from now, so on and so forth. I think we need to work with these fellas. I do. That's what's going to bring development to Graham. But what I've seen here lately, like she said, the last 18 months, it's crazy. And it is crazy. But I want y'all to look at their side, but I want you to look at my side too. Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, so
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
It wasn't a public hearing.
we didn't really,
we
it's
don't
not
have to
really
do-
a public
okay.
hearing,
So
All
it's
right.
just, okay.
but Bonnie, what are your thoughts?
I have many. Totally get where the builders are coming from. And I also get where the citizens are coming from. And I know we have to vote on something because we have to adopt a fee schedule by 1 July. So it has to be in place by 1 July. So, I mean, looking at the work that Josh just gave us here, and considering what the builders were saying, I would be in favor of, raising the prices some now and then reassessing, like you said, maybe seeing if we can get the water flow reduction approved and then reassessing where we are 6 months later. And in the meantime, maybe we could have some discussions with, and appropriately with the building community and then reassess in 6 months. I would be in favor of something like that. I think it's a fair compromise to just raise it. Maybe this one that we're talking about for July 1. And
It's
then,
almost a 50%.
and then, wait and see where we are in 6 months. And that's my input.
Okay, Mr. Chin?
I agree. This discussion and discussions I've had with some of other builders drive home the point that a big step from $1,700 to $4,500, that's asking a lot. And so the incremental approach, I think, is reasonable. And re-examining the schedule in 6 months. But between now and then, we need to talk to the community. And again, what brought a lot of this up was again, my question about a schedule for infill developers. Because right now, our development ordinance does not address that. So you gotta kind of walk your way through the minefield trying to find the right description. And so discussion has been, we need to have an open public forum to discuss what is infill and with the developers, what's an appropriate, what fee should be considered. So what was proposed here really is showing you a 3-step phase where I still believe we need to get, to somewhere toward where we are bringing in the revenue to help replace our infrastructure. Now, as was mentioned, if we find out that come 31 December, we don't need to raise the fee, then we won't raise the fee. Just because we show it's there, but it's not automatic. It's not like, well, if you don't do something, then it's an automatic fee increase. If we don't do something, means the fee doesn't go up. But it at least allows you as a developer to say, well, unless, something drastic happens in the economy, if it doesn't turn around, more than likely we might have to discuss raising the fees. Do we raise it that much? Maybe yes, maybe no. But the bottom line is, it's not, we look at the old schedule, it's unfair in that you build a mansion, your fees are the same if you built a 3-bedroom house. Where now with the way it's laid out, it's graduated so that depending on how big a house you build, that's the schedule you pay. And so what we're doing now, I think is correcting an inequity that needed to be addressed. But I agree that we don't need to jump to the upper limits. We need to take a step. So if we go with what's proposed, whether, it's almost 50% cut or a 50% increase versus more, when you're going from $1,700 to $2,200.
So I don't want to be remiss in relaying to anybody that may have not seen this in their email, but I heard back from Amanda Holdren, attorney, and that represents several developers in the community. And she said, thank you again for notifying me about the discussion and proposal on the agenda tonight. I had an opportunity to review and vet with some colleagues, and we do have some concerns about the magnitude of these increases. She was basing this on what the ones were from last week, namely how these increases will affect affordable and more accurately attainable housing in Graham. We attached an interesting study from the National Association of Home Builders Commission that showed the numbers of potential home buyers priced out of the market when a house is increased by $1,000. You will note that Burlington, North Carolina was one of the study areas, so that provides us a good apples to apples analysis for Graham. For Burlington, we can see that already 40% of its residents can afford the median, that already only 40% of its residents can afford the median home price of $285,358. That's shocking that the median home price is that. And the $1,000 price increment increases eliminates 137 buyers from buying that same home. The proposal you sent indicates increasing water and sewer fees by $5,911 per 3-bedroom home, which doesn't account for any margin from the builder. Typically, direct construction costs account for 50 to 60% of the cost of houses. So these fee increases would effectively increase the price of a house by approximately $12,000. This covers the selling costs like realtors, overhead, insurance, interest, and profit. As you can see, that creates a substantial decrease in buyers served with attainable housing. Not only would these increases eliminate many potential buyers, but would also affect the population growth trend that your projections are based on. I know the city needs to raise development fees and come to a sustainable allocation between growth and taxpayer. However, I see this proposal will create significant negative impact on the residents and hope to be residents. Is this something we can take a little more time with and offer input to the city and its analysis to see how other municipalities are tracking this issue, provided and provide perspective on what developers and builders see across the state. So she too is interested in being a part of those discussions. So I think, you know, she asked me for me to make sure that the rest of the council got that and it was read. So I just wanted to do that. I had forgotten to do that earlier. Joey?
I think we do need to pump the brakes a little bit here. You know, this was just proposed. I know we've looked at a lot of things over the past several months. I worked till 5:15 today. I did not open this email till I opened my laptop up right here. So I don't have a lot of time to, you know, to really mull over it and give it a fair and, you know, educated decision. I do agree we need to go ahead and adopt a fee with a marginal increase. Wait till we get our flow test and readdress this in a few months with development, with talk with developers, to see how it's going to affect everybody. I just want to make a true educated decision before I jump in with both feet and get over my head.
Vicky?
I agree with what Bobby and Bonnie and Joey have said. We need to adopt an incremental jump in these rates. There's no way the building community can absorb that much at one time.
We got too many homes in process. That would be, you know, we got houses, hundreds of houses down here off of Moore Street that are dirt. And they have signs in the yard that says sold. Same on Rogers Road. I mean, that's going to be a direct hit to any profit or anything that they have, because they're under contract, already sold these homes. So I just think we need to all that, and to have more time to make an educated decision, I think would be wise.
So can I say that it's a consensus of the council that we would come back before January 1, maybe?
No, I think we need.
No, I mean, after we do something tonight, but before we pass the January,
Oh, yeah, January
thing that-
1st, absolutely.
that we would have a discussion about this that's advertised to the local
October,
business
November.
community.
Right.
Whenever we get a flow analysis done and we know what that true number is, that's when we need to, as soon as that's done.
Yeah, I would advise you put it into your motion. That way.
Yeah, I
it's
will.
part of it.
I'm just wanting to know that that's what, so Josh, if we were today to have, I mean, I'm just,
Mhm.
I know that we don't have it. But if we were Mebane and we had that flow rate, we know it's not 1-to-1. I know you have to base your analysis on what you're required to do. But in reality, I guess what makes me sit better in the argument for taxpayer versus system cost and development, if you were to get that more truer number and it was 80, would we be coming in with numbers, which is what you're proposing?
So would the number for, with the flow reduction, would the number be lower than what we're proposing on the screen right there for July 1, 2022?
Or
No.
would it be the same? Would it be?
Would it be?
The number would be very similar to that number. The number for the full number for 240 gallons a day would be higher than that number right there. I've set that number purposely below what the flow reduction would give you as the maximum number.
Okay.
So that we would not
Until
be,
you
so
get
that we would not be in the position of having people ask for a rebate if they paid their
Right.
fee in November.
But you obviously because you were involved in the analysis 5 years ago, you obviously advocate that, and you believe, it's your belief on your, I know you can't base your methodology on that, but it's your belief that that's the true cost of the system.
Value be a better. word.
One of the biggest problems that Graham's water and wastewater systems have as far as new development is what we call paper flow, which is tributary flow that's not online. Tributary flow that's not online is at 120 gallons a bedroom in the city of Graham. That ties up a significant portion of your wastewater plant. If that number is 80 gallons a day instead of 120 gallons a day per bedroom, that is a significant savings. It's about 1,100 homes based on what's already on the books. So the real number for a 4-bedroom home, right now is 480 gallons a day. That's what it's permitted at. That's by God and per DEQ, per DEQ until that house is built and lived in, it counts against the city of Graham's numbers as 480 gallons a day. In reality, it's about 220. So I fully believe that we can get the number to 80 gallons a day, and the reason I'm saying 80 gallons a day, because that's the lowest allowable number per state law. Like they won't issue us a flow reduction letter for less than that. But I firmly believe that yes, that we should be able to get to that. And once we do, that alleviates a significant amount of the problem, or that makes reality closer to what's on paper.
Okay. So you see what he's saying in that, okay, because I think that's very important to understand. The other issue that Bobby hit on a little bit earlier was about infill development. And my concern was that I kind of echoed what Bobby was saying about infill, is just because it's so, it's throughout the comprehensive plan that we're supposed to be encouraging low impact development. Not the stripping of trees and all these sort of things. And the actual expansion necessarily of Graham, and that infill is very important, obviously, and a lot of land growth management plans are based on this philosophy of doing infill and really encouraging infill. So I'm happy to hear that other council members are trying to look at what we can do to try to encourage that. So it's just been proven that it really is a positive thing for the citizens and the staff. So I hope we can come up with a solution in the land use planning and the discussions that we have for that, and come up with something to address infill at that time. So I want that just to be something that I want to see us do in the future. In regards to the development fees, trying to get an explanation from Josh as to, what are others, like when we got this, one of the other things that we had asked in the meeting was for him to give us an analysis of how we're tracking with other cities. And he did Mebane, Elon, several different cities, Raleigh, right? Raleigh, and to see how they are. But I can tell you that I'm sure we feel pretty confident that Mebane and other municipalities will also be going up, because obviously this is, construction costs are going up and they have large capital improvement projects in these areas. And so we have infrastructure, but it doesn't last forever. And we have a lot of things that we have to be fixing. And as much as we can be doing to get grants so that the users and the builders and the fees don't have to go up, we are doing everything that literally every single grant opportunity I am literally inundating the staff with and the engineer with to try to do that. Ricky has sent some, Bobby has sent some. Bonnie, have you, I'm trying to think if I've gotten anything from you, but I know that we're all working on trying to get as much money from other sources as possible. So I'm going to leave it up to whoever wants to make a motion, but I think that we need to pass, my personal opinion is we need to pass, obviously, something tonight, and I would be, I'm fine with going on with whatever the rest of the council wants to do.
Madam Mayor, make a motion that we adopt the water and sewer system development fees for July 1 as proposed on this new proposal, with the understanding that we will revisit this later come January and decide, after we've seen if Josh can get our water reduction rates reduced, and meet with the builders in the community in January to reassess as to whether or not we'll go forward with any more rate increases.
I was writing everything, Bonnie, Councilwoman Whitaker was saying, we would have to adopt the whole fee schedule. So that part, but also the rest of the fee schedule as well.
I mean, the rest of this one?
Well, yeah.
No. What's in the,
The new
The
fee
fee
schedule.
schedule.
Oh,
the fee
It's already
schedule,
been revised.
yeah,
Right.
the fee schedule has the July 1,
Right.
2022, but it also adds information. It has the July 1 or January 1, 2023 fees, but it's not automatic. It's just there for information. I think we need to make sure, make that clear. That come 1 January, we will not automatically bump the fees up to reflect the January 1 table.
Well, I think what Renee was hitting on was the fee schedule in its totality.
Right.
With the specifics of that portion of the water and sewer tapping system, the development fees being as she laid out, with it being the July 1 proposed amount, with the revisiting of the fees prior to the January 2023 timeframe. So.
Right.
Oh, I did want to say one other thing that a constituent, a builder had said to me, and I failed to mention, was they said they had been in TRC for a while, and if they wanted to pay their fees, they're not really allowed to be able to pay their fees early until they get approval from TRC. And would the council consider allowing people that are already in TRC review to pay their fees under the existing schedule?
In fact, that's added in the notes.
Is that,
We gave them a process for prepayment, which
Okay.
required construction plan approval or water and sewer permit.
so they were able, because I know it historically in the past, people were given 30 days, but now that we've changed the process that you need to get TRC comes before, it has to be done.
So the process that's in the fee schedule and the notes at the basic, it's at the bottom of the last page of the fee schedule, includes the process for prepayment of fees, and also includes a note on there that if they already have a building permit, that they can pay within 30 days of July 1 and pay the the old fee, or, and then they can prepay at any time if they have construction plan approval, or if they have water and sewer permits in hand.
So that's not an undue burden on the planning department to have everybody rush to try to get approval, right? That's where I was thinking, was that everybody, if you know a fee's gonna go up, you're just gonna be like,
Right, right. I
Okay.
mean, it opens it up to, I mean, the intent, well, not really true. The intent is that anyone who wants to pay could take advantage of that because they already have their construction plan approval. They already have their water and sewer development fee, water and sewer permits. It also means that if someone, if someone came, and we. it
but we've
means that-
always had the policy that when we increase fees, that you have 30 days
Mhm.
after they're adopted to pay under the old rate schedule, right?
Yes.
We've always had that policy
Yes,
forever. Okay.
yes. And you could amend that if you chose to and say, instead of building permit approval within 30 days, you could say construction plan approval, or you could say water and sewer permits if you chose to open it up to more people because it is June 28th. And I mean, there's a difference between building permits and if you build single family homes, as we've heard from people, you could add that in there if you wanted to. That's not in there right now. I know that's another,
I mean,
Item
the
for
benefit to
discussion
the
that I didn't
city
really
is that they're getting the fees up front
that's correct.
faster.
That's correct.
And the benefit to the developer is you're not paying the differences of a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom.
That's right.
You're paying a flat rate for each house, the same rate.
That's right. And it's a choice, and that's a council choice if you wanted to
So
amend that
what would the
language.
wording need to be on that?
I believe,
It's number 5, I believe. Projects that have active building permits but have not paid system development fees have 30 days from July 1st, 2022 to pay rates under the former water and sewer connection fee schedule.
and what I'm suggesting is you could revise that to say active building or water and sewer permits.
Building or water sewer permits.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's still in TRC, they're not gonna have either one of those, right?
That's correct.
Um,
They're unlikely to.
how many, I've just I heard from another engineer saying that things were taking 3 months to come from TRC sometimes. So that,
Things don't take 3 months to come to TRC or to go to TRC. It may take time to get your plans approved through TRC, and oftentimes that's based upon the level of and quality of the plans they're submitted.
Generally speaking, it's about 2 weeks from the time you submit
Mhm.
to the time you go to TRC. I want to say it's the first and third, generally it's the first and third Monday.
so what,
It behooves a developer to have a fairly complete plan before that they're going to submit to the TRC.
It depends on the scale of the project.
Right, but
Mhm.
still,
I'm just saying, if you have something in TRC and TRC only meets one time a month, they have one shot to get it right. And if they don't, twice a
It's the
month.
first and third of the month.
But again, I know that if you call, that first time might already be full, right? Because it only takes so many people, right?
No,
Mhm.
Graham TRC is not limited on space. We take as many people as submit within the 2 weeks.
And we have to work around the TRC members because they're also obligated to other, I mean, NCDOT, Allie Williams, they're obligated to other TRCs in other jurisdictions. So we've sort of secured that first and third timeframe. Other places have other dates. And it's good to keep a schedule like that so that everyone knows that that date is for Graham.
Sure.
This is a procedural matter. What I understood, I don't want to extract from the issue you're currently getting with. What I understood the clerk and the assistant manager also bring to your attention. The motion is that some of the items, fees, and so forth, not on the sheets that were spent on, are still pending from your work session. Well, we need to approve the proposed.
We have to approve the whole fee schedule
Right.
That's,
uh,
that was
with,
provided.
with the changes that Bonnie's referring to. We're just trying to work through this. Whether how many would you say, how many projects do you have in TRC right now?
Last time we had 8, the upcoming one, I think we have two. So it varies depending on submittals, where people are in their process, how close are they? So it varies. It's really hard to give an average because it could go in a wave.
Okay, but you could theoretically send out a letter to those 10 people and say, fees are going up effective July 1. If you want to pay under the old fee schedule, you have 30 days to do so. I think that would be fair. Don't you think? I
So
hate not to
word-
notify them.
The wording that I just gave you is based upon building permit and water and sewer permits. Water and sewer permits require a state permit that you can't apply for until you have construction plan approval. The review time on those permits is roughly 30 days. So new projects that have not been approved yet, of the ones that were on the last TRC schedule, there is one that is likely to have its permits in hand, perhaps 2. The rest of them are unlikely to have, either don't require a permit or unlikely to have a permit in place.
Okay, so you don't think it's an issue?
Not really.
That nobody's going to be complaining that they didn't know about
No,
it?
we
or
will,
anything like
we
that?
can certainly let them know and
Yeah.
pass that along, but I think that most people are trying to get their projects done anyway, these projects done anyway.
Okay.
And
I just don't want anybody that's under contract to come back and be like, no one let me know that I could have prepaid these and you changed it in the ordinance and you didn't tell me.
mhm.
Okay. Back
To
to
answer
Bonnie.
Mr. Boney's question about, there were fees that we proposed either be removed or changed. Those were approved. The only thing that we had not approved was the number, the
No,
water and
they
tap fees.
They
Haven't
haven't
been
been.
officially
I know, but
approved.
we
We've worked through them
Oh.
And so we
they're-
were
We need to
ready,
adopt
they're
it
ready to adopt.
they're ready to
This
be
was the
adopted.
one that was in
Yeah.
question.
that's why today, what we were gonna approve,
Is the complete fee schedule
complete
for
fee
22,
schedule.
23.
yeah.
With the exception, this was still in the works, the development fee for the water and sewer. Everything else we've worked through.
This was the last piece.
So, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the fee schedule as it's written currently, as well as the water and sewer system development fees as they are written today, to reflect the increase for July 1, 2022, with the following caveats. Projects that have acting building or construction permits but have not paid the system development fees have 30 days from July 1 to pay the rates under the former fees. In addition to that, that we will revisit in January after the engineer applies for the water reduction fees. We'll revisit and discuss with the builders in the community. The fees will not automatically increase on January 1. We'll reassess.
So we need to
Um,
review it prior to January.
Right. So, but it will not be an automatic increase.
Did you want to add that or water and sewer permits that he mentioned?
Sure, I thought I did, but
I think you just said building.
I said
but
building or construction, but
is it-
or water or sewer permits.
The
Okay.
technical term would be building, water, and sewer, building, water or sewer permits.
Okay. So projects that have active building permits or water and sewer permits, but have not paid the system development fees, have 30 days from 1 July to pay the prior fees.
I second Bonnie's motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I hear a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion.
I second.